Welcome, everybody, to the Rabbi's Message that come to you every single Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. You know, the Torah message of today is a very important message. This is the second book known as the Book of Exodus, the Book of Shemot. And we begin the book tomorrow in every single synagogue, this coming Saturday, in every single synagogue. We read the story of the Exodus of Egypt. King Pharaoh was at that time the strongest king in that period in history. And it's a famous story how Moshe known as, takes the Jewish people out of slavery of 210 years and the last 80 years of harsh slavery. And he brings the Jewish people, after giving the 10 plagues, which we read about later on, and of course, the final exodus of Egypt. What's interesting in this week's Torah portion, besides discussing the birth of Moses and what type of individual this great righteous person Moses was from an early young child, being saved in the Nile River by the daughter of Pharaoh herself, how she went ahead to bathe and she saw a little basket in the water and she extended her arm, and a miraculous miracle occurred that her arm became long and she was able to bring forth the basket that inside was little baby Moses. And she raised Moses within the palace of Pharaoh. And eventually Moses left the Pharaoh and lived in a different area, lived in the Sinai desert. God comes to Moses, the famous story of the burning bush. And God says, remove your shoes, you are walking in a holy place. And Moses removes the shoes and he comes forth to this bush and he says, I don't understand. Here there's a bush that's burning, and yet the bush is not being consumed by the flames. And God says, I am appearing to you in my glory, and you seeing the expression and the holiness of God himself. And God says, I have a mission for you. Your mission is that until this point, it's been a period of close to 210 years, that your fellow Jewish family and community is enslaved in Egypt. And now it has come the time that you should guide them into redemption and you should have them leave the land of Egypt. What's interesting is that God comes to Moses and says, Moses, I'm going to give you two missions. First of all, take the staff and go before Pharaoh, place the staff on the floor, and the staff will turn into a snake. And another mission, he says, when you go to the Jewish people, I want you to tell the Jewish people that I am your God. The expression in Hebrew is, Eya Asher Eya. I will be what I will be. What happens is, when God tells Moses, go to the Jewish people and says that your God, the God of Israel, has come to take you out of this harsh slavery, Moses says, what happens if they ask, who is this God? What is the name of this God? Who is this individual? Who is this godly figure, so to speak, that God is going to redeem and take us out of Egypt? God said, this is what you should tell them. Eya Asher Eya, which means I will be as I will be, replied God to Moses. Tell the children of Israel, I will be sent, me to you. What does that mean, that I will be sent me to you? Who is the I will be? So the great commentary, Rashi, 11th century scholar, says as follows, that based on the Talmudic tradition, this files the missing words. What are the missing words within the statement? I will be means I will be with you in your present distress, just as I will be with you in the future exiles and persecutions. The obvious question that we have to understand and demands an explanation is that this is a statement that God tells Moses, that I will be as I will be, also leaves us wanting. Moses asked a simple question from God. Tell the Jewish people your name, for a means of identification, which he can then communicate to the Jewish people. Moses says, God, tell me your name. They shouldn't say, who is this person? Who are you talking about? How do we know to trust you? Could you imagine a person of 210 years in harsh and difficult slavery? Someone comes to them and says, hey, you're free. I'm going to help you in the name of God. A normal person, a healthy individual will say, what are you talking about, God? I have not seen any miracles. I've only seen hardship. I have not seen any wonder. All I've seen is challenge. You're telling me there's a God out there. If there is a God, what is God's name? What does he respond? God's presence is a verb rather than a proper noun, an activity rather than a description. How does this make sense that Moses is going to be satisfied with this that God told Moses? Tell them I will be as I will be. And all of a sudden, from this expression of I will be as I will be, changed his whole approach. And with that, he was able to go before the Jewish people and eventually go before Pharaoh. You know, when we talk about this idea that Moses came before the Jewish people and before the children of Israel, and he said to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they will say, what is his name? What shall I say to them? This was the question that Moses asks God. Maimonides, the great sage, says as follows. He writes in his guide to the perplexed. He raises a question. Why was Moses convinced that the Jewish people would want to know the name of the God who sent them on this mission to liberate them from slavery? Apparently, by Moses demonstrating knowledge of God's name, he would somehow vindicate himself as a genuine prophet. He would authenticate his claim as a divine messenger to redeem the Hebrew from Egypt. But why? Why did he have to do this? If they have heard of God's name prior to Moses coming, it is easy to assume that Moses learned the name from the same sources as they, and not necessary from God. If they had never ever heard the name before, why would the new name they learned from Moses persuade them to trust him? It doesn't make sense. What information do we gain out of the verse, out of this dialogue between Moses and God? When Moses says, I can't go before the children of Israel if I don't know your name, because what will I say? Who sent me? And then, of course, the obvious question is, as Maimonides asks, what do we gain from this knowledge? It's not like the Jewish people, the children of Israel, actually knew the name of God. So why would they not believe him when he says this is the name? You know, perhaps there's even a deeper question. When he says, behold, I will come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they will say, what is his name? Moses will be discussing with them the God that their fathers and God that they have learned about them from their fathers. Did their fathers never share with them the name of God? How is it that their fathers speak about this God or pray to him without some sort of name or description? It says their fathers and their fathers and the gods of their fathers. This is what we call some Talmudic engagement. When we read a concept, a verse, and we say, wait a second, it demands an explanation. It demands clarification. It demands for us to understand what does Moses want from the Jewish people, from the children of Israel. Do the children of Israel know God's name? Do they need to know God's name? And why? What is the message that God tells Moses? That I will be what I will be. I will be what I will be seems like saying, hey, I will be as I will be. Don't mix into my business. I am who I am. You are who you are. Is this a normal expression? Is this a way how we can interact and demand and gain satisfaction that the Jewish people, after being in such harsh slavery, should all of a sudden come to a reality and say, hey, this makes sense? We need to clarify, what did God tell Moses? And what's the deeper explanation and understanding to these words that when God tells Moses that I will be what I will be, what is the definition to that? We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll give an insight to this outstanding question that appears in this week's Torah portion, the portion of Shemot of Exodus. Well, welcome back. This is again Rabbi Elazar Bogomilsky with the Rabbi's Message. You know, prior to the break, we asked the question, what is the discussion and the dialogue that takes place between Moses and God? Moses turns to God and says, when I come before the children of Israel and I say, who sent me? What is your name? They might ask. Who is God? Tell me a name. What does God say? What name does he use? That I will be what I will be, and I will be what I will be. How does this answer the question? What kind of name of God is that? And the commentary, the 11th century commentary, Rashi explains that it says, I will be with you for the good through your pain, and I will be with you for the good of your happy moments in life. And again, how does this respond to the name of God? You know, it's interesting, later on in this week's Torah portion, we see that Moses turns to God and says, I don't understand you, God. If you love the children of Israel and you respect them so much, how do you allow 210 years of harsh slavery? How do you allow pain and suffering? How do you allow that the Jewish people should go through such difficult, challenging times? Murder. It says that Pharaoh broke out with leprosy, and his advisors told him what he should do. The commentaries explain that every single morning and every single evening, he should literally slaughter 150 young males, Jewish children, and within their blood he should bathe. And if he does this for a period of time, he will be healed of his leprosy. Could you imagine God allowing such infliction? God allowing such harshness, such danger, such difficult times to the children of Israel. This is a God that says, I love the Jewish people. I will admire them. I hold them close to my heart. They're dear. I love them. These expressions we find constantly. How is it possible for such a God that really cares and loves? How could it be that on one hand we see such terrible danger? We see such terrible hardship. This is the question that Moses asks of God. And he says, I don't understand. How could it be that you are compassionate? How could it be that you have mercy when I witness and I see the terrible tragedies occurring to the children of Israel in the world at that time? And this question perhaps is a question that we can ask from generation to generation, through the times of the Crusades, through the times of different trials and tribulations that the Jewish people have gone through. up till the Holocaust or present times, how is it possible for tragedies to occur, people to be wounded and killed? If you're a God that loves the creation, if you're a God that loves the world, how is it possible that you can be such a God and not be affected by what's going on? This is a strong and powerful question that Moses demands of God to give us some insight, some inspiration, some directive on the message. God turns to Moses and he says the words as follows. He says, Eya, if they ask, what is my name? If they ask, who am I? Who is this God? Tell them, Eya Asher Eya. What does that mean? How does this answer the question that I will be what I will be? And as Rashi explains, the commentary, that I will be with them through the good times, and I will be with them through the challenging and difficult times. God says, I'll tell you what it is. I am a man of mystery. God confesses to Moses. I am strange. I am difficult in understanding and grasping who I am. You're right. My script of history is unfathomable to the human mind and hearts. My silence at times, you can say, gosh, God is cruel. God is removed from this world. But one thing what I want you to understand is, and this is the message I want you to tell the children of Israel, that I am not a detached God in any way. I'm not a God that's residing in heavens and objectively governing the destiny of each human being the way I see fit. I am present with you in your anguish, and I groan of all the beaten slaves and the hardship that goes on. And I wail with all the tragedies as the mothers see their children being slaughtered. I feel every single pain. Your cries are my cries. I am totally weeping together with you. You feel crushed. I am also crushed as well. No matter how deep your darkness is, remember, I am in there with you. I do not orchestrate human sufferings from some distant planet. I'm not removed and distressed from any hardship that goes on. I am totally one and there with you. I suffer with your sufferers. I sob with when you sob. I am praying for your redemption when you are also praying for redemption. And this is the message which needs clarification and comprehension to understand. That when God sees this world, and God engages in this world, and at times we say to ourselves, where is God? How could this be? Why is God doing this? The answer is, the why God's doing this, nobody knows. But to say, God forbid, that God is removed from this world, to say, God forbid, that God is disengaged, God is on vacation, God's in heaven, detached from this physical world, that's something that one should never go down that thought. Because God says, Eya Asher Eya, I will be and I will be. What does that mean? I will be with you through your good times, and of course I will be with you through your challenging moments. When you have times that you need joy, don't think I don't notice those joyments. Don't think I don't celebrate when I see goodness in this world. But when there are things that unfortunately are stricken upon this world of horror and terror and disgust, I am there too. Man may never comprehend God's mind, but a person should never think that God tells Moses that God, who understands the purpose of the pain, gives himself the luxury of not feeling the intensity of the darkness. Every tear we shed becomes his tear. He may not wipe them away, but he makes them his. Now, does this really ease our pain? No, of course not. Knowing that God feels our pain, does that make it better? No. But perhaps what it does is, it makes a world of a difference if God was also there with us. It means that there was more to the story. There's more dignity when we talk about the valley of tears. It doesn't mean that we are shedding them alone, but it means that God is really feeling our pain with us. And I believe this is an important message that each and every one of us can perhaps take from this week's Torah portion. That when we are dealing in a world, in our personal life, and we have challenging moments, and we have times when we say to ourselves, why are you doing this, God? It's not fair. I can't deal with this. I can't handle the pressure. God, it seems like you shut down my window. It seems like you cemented my future of life. I don't see the glory. I don't see the light. Where are you, God? A person should be comforted to the fact that it's never too late to pray. And God always listens to the tears and to the heartfelt prayer of the human being. And when we open up our minds and heart and soul, and we say, God, grant us these wishes. The Almighty God, give us these blessings that we need in our life. God wants us to be happy, and God feels our joy as well. Just like when the obvious is, when things are going good, we say, hey, God blessed us. We should know that even in the darkest times in our life, God is also holding our arm. And this perhaps gives us strength to the human being, that when things are very dark, grasp the hand of God and say, you are taking me into the shadow of darkness, but make sure that once again, I'll be once again reunited in the glory and the presence of your bright sun. And this is the message that we have from this week's Torah portion. And I'm hoping that people, when they contemplate, which is a deep concept on this issue of how we instill God in our life, even when things are not good, I am sure that God will grant us all the wishes that we deserve, the blessings that we need for only joy and happiness and prosperity and peace in the entire world. You're listening to the Rabbi's Message. We'll be back same time, same place next week.